Before we get started, I first want to say that the fact that you're even familiar with the term panic attack is a really good thing. There was probably a time that you weren't. I don't know about you, but I personally was experiencing panic disorder for over a year and had spent thousands of dollars on therapy before I knew what was going on. During that time, I really thought I was going crazy. I'd have panic attacks while I was driving, while I was lying in bed, standing in lines, at movies, anywhere, and anytime. I could not escape them. And I don't think I could ever adequately describe that time of my life to a person that hasn't experienced panic attacks, other than by saying to imagine your version of hell or a place of constant fear and terror and mental suffering. I mean, thinking that you're losing your mind in itself is a pretty terrifying thing. Other anxiety symptoms that I experienced personally during that time were the racing heartbeat, chest pains, tension headaches, dizziness, diarrhea, constant fear of health problems, fatigue, paranoia, constant sweaty palms, depersonalization, and of course, the panic attacks themselves. Panic attacks, in a very simplified sense, I think can best be described as an intense onset of dread and fear, with an overwhelming sense that something terrible is about to happen, like you might be having a heart attack or a mental breakdown, or maybe you feel like you're about to die or lose your mind. However, in terms of my overall anxiety experience, panic attacks actually ended up being a good thing in a way, because they're what prompted me to finally figure out what was going on. I had lived with anxiety for a while, but the panic attacks could not be ignored. It got to the point that I couldn't do anything else in my life. I didn't feel like I wanted to go on living with that kind of feeling inside me. So it became an absolute necessity to figure out what the situation was and resolve it. And the good news is that once I discovered what was going on, what a panic attack was, and why it occurred, it didn't take me too long to figure out a way to reverse the phenomenon. And that's what I want to share with you here. So to start out, knowing why a panic attack occurs will really help with understanding the solution. So let's jump right in. As a panic attack sufferer, I think I can safely speculate that you, like I did, have a tendency to worry about things, often expecting the worst. Kind of like negative thinking is your default manner of thought. You're probably the type of person that's more likely to worry about bad things happening than to dwell on the good things. And to a certain degree, that's okay. It's kind of a survival instinct to worry a bit and to keep aware of danger, potential problems. In today's world, it keeps us on time, motivates us to prepare for exams, keeps us getting out of bed in the morning and going to work so that we don't become homeless. But there's no doubt that it's gone overboard if you're experiencing anxiety and panic attacks. So those, what I'll call negative thoughts, could really be revolving around anything: social situations, financial issues, health issues, future events, really anything. I shouldn't even mention examples because every person is unique, and life is just full of things that have the potential of going wrong and therefore of being worried about. So for a person that has a tendency toward that manner of thinking, it's really not hard to fill a good part of your day or even your entire day with worries and fears. So when that's the default manner of thinking in your life, with time, eventually all those fears and worries just start accumulating and lingering in your mind, even when you're not consciously or directly thinking about them. Some psychologists might say that the fears are lingering in your subconscious mind. And what happens during a panic attack is that your body starts to react to those fears in your mind as if they're real, again, even if you're not currently thinking about them. Your body kind of goes haywire and reacts to them just like they're physical danger. The way it does this is by releasing stress hormones like adrenaline into your system. Adrenaline, if you don't know, is the fight or flight hormone, which puts your body into a really heightened state of alertness, really to prepare you for dealing with danger by either fighting or running away. That's fight or flight. It's an evolutionary self-preservation instinct characterized by a sense of fear, nervousness, and adrenaline. The problem is that this reaction is occurring without the presence of any real physical danger. I mean, if you could see that a bear was attacking you or that you were about to get hit by a car, then the adrenaline feeling would seem totally normal, and you wouldn't be thinking that the feeling was strange at all. But without that visual danger in front of you, you don't consciously understand what the feeling is. So what happens is this: you get fearful of that misunderstood sensation itself, or the symptoms that are associated with it. Well, fear of that adrenaline-based sensation or other symptoms just creates more adrenaline, which just adds to the sensation and symptoms. Then you become more fearful because there's more sensation, and again, with more fear comes more adrenaline. More sensation, more fear, more sensation, on and on. And this spiral just keeps intensifying, and it doesn't take long before you're in a full-blown panic attack. And yes, it's terrifying. But from a practical perspective, this is all that's causing the panic attacks to occur. Now, the good news is this: reversing the condition is not a very complicated process. And better yet, it's probably going to do a lot more good for your life than to just stop panic attacks. Now, from what I've described here, you might be thinking that I'm just going to talk about positive thinking. After all, even from my description, that's where it all starts. But that's probably not the solution. As a panic disorder sufferer myself, I know from experience most people can't just start thinking positive thoughts and hope that panic attacks will stop. In fact, that kind of approach can actually make things worse, which you may have already discovered. The reason for that is because when positive thinking is used as a tool to avoid something you fear, it's really coming from a foundation of fear, and you end up just mixing empty, rosy words with catastrophe thoughts and feelings. Trying to think positive while part of you really believes that you're on the brink of death or insanity, well, it never worked for me. So I first want to mention some very small ways to begin on the road from recovery from panic. I'm going to start with some little and obvious suggestions and build up to what I think will be the most powerful tool for you. Okay, first, I'm not out to change your personality or lifestyle, but my first suggestion is that until you get your panic attacks under control, it's going to help a lot if you cut caffeine out of your diet completely. And I know this isn't going to be the final solution, but caffeine is a drug that can really contribute to a sense of nervousness, which ultimately can increase the frequency or likelihood of panic attacks. So just until you learn some more powerful tools, try cutting out soda and coffee from your diet, or any coffee-based drink. Even decaf coffee, it has more caffeine than you think, and the effects build up. Improving other aspects of your diet can also help with anxiety, but start with caffeine. It might be having a bigger impact than you think. Okay, next, exercise. I know it seems like panic disorder is a purely mental phenomenon, but it's amazing how closely our mental condition is tied to our physical condition. Our brain is not separate from our body. The mind is one integrated whole, what I call the body-mind. Also, just think about how for millions of years the human body has been evolving with regular physical activity as part of daily life. And now, within the space of just a few generations, we're sitting in offices and classrooms all day, we're taking buses and driving cars, and really only getting a fraction of the exercise that our bodies have adapted to for thousands of generations. So what does this mean? It means a whole lot of extra energy buildup in the body. And that energy overload in the right mental environment of fear, worry, and anxiety quickly converts into more anxiety and eventually panic. On a similar note, a few years ago I adopted a dog from a public animal shelter, and it turned out that this dog needed a lot of help, which led me to watch just about every episode of Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer. Well, it turns out that one of the most common issues that you see with troubled dogs is anxiety. Everything from separation anxiety, anxiety about strangers and other dogs, home environment changes, anxiety that turns into aggression, you name it. And with dogs, you can't talk them through it or reason with them or give them a book. We don't speak the same language, at least not most of us. Well, the Dog Whisperer has a formula for working with dogs who have problems like this. And guess what the very first component of that formula is? Exercise. Exercise is so many times the number one key to these dogs' rehabilitation. And when you think about it, dogs are kind of in the same situation as us. They started off as wolves for millions of years, out walking their territory all day. Then for thousands of years, they were bred for hunting, racing, and other outdoor physical activities. And then, all of a sudden, they're living in Los Angeles in a little apartment. They get a 10-minute walk in the morning and evening, and the owner is wondering why their dog is acting fidgety, or chewing up their couch, or barking uncontrollably. It's simple. Unused body energy turns into frustration and anxiety. And if you're suffering from anxiety and panic, there's probably a very good chance that your ancestors lived lifestyles that had way more physical activity than what you're getting now. So here's a little assignment for you. Depending upon your current physical condition and your doctor's approval, find a physical activity that ideally wears you out. I mean, for whatever length of time that you're able, go for a really brisk run or lift some weights or both. Experiment by doing this daily for a week. I know exercise isn't going to be everyone's favorite solution, and it's just part of my overall approach, but if it helps you avoid panic attacks, you're going to keep doing it. And I know from personal experience in my initial stages of overcoming panic disorder, exercise played a major role. So even if it doesn't seem like it will help, give it a try and experiment a little bit just as a favor to yourself. Exercise is a really simple yet powerful step that you can take immediately to help get your panic disorder under control. Okay, enough with the obvious. Tip number 3 is what has been the most powerful tool for overcoming panic attacks that I have ever tried. And I can't say that I've tried everything because once I found this, I didn't need anything else. It was really a miracle for me, and I've received a lot of amazing feedback from others who have tried it as well. In order for this to make sense, I first want to remind you about what we discussed in the beginning of this video, which was why panic attacks occur. In a nutshell, a chain reaction takes place where you're walking around all day with worry, anxiety, and other fear-based thoughts in your mind. Then at some point, you're doing something else, anything with no special thoughts in particular, and your body starts to react to all those fears lingering in your subconscious mind. Even if you're not consciously fearful at the moment, and even if you don't see anything dangerous or fear-worthy with your eyes, your subconscious mind still automatically releases some fight or flight hormones in order to get your body ready for dealing with its imagined danger. Then, not surprisingly, without visual or conscious danger, that adrenaline sensation in your body doesn't really make sense to you. You don't recognize it for what it is, and therefore you become fearful of the adrenaline sensation itself. So the spiral has started. Your fear causes more adrenaline to be released, which causes you to become more fearful, which then causes more adrenaline. And well, you get the idea. The cycle continues to elevate, and pretty soon you're having a full panic attack. So to keep things simple, the way to overcome panic attacks is to break that cycle. And you've already taken the first step by becoming consciously aware of what a panic attack is. When you feel them coming on now, you can start to remind yourself that it's simply the sensation of adrenaline and other stress hormones being released in response to lingering fears in your mind. It's nothing unusual. Millions of people experience panic attacks. So start by just reminding yourself that you're gonna be okay. These things pass. You're not gonna go crazy. You're not gonna die. You're gonna be okay. But you know, even if you can't tell yourself that, or even if you don't believe it, it doesn't matter because you're still gonna be okay. So let's move on to the next step, and this is the most important and powerful help that I have to offer you. I want you to recognize that every time you've sensed a panic attack starting to surface in the past, the process began with you trying to mentally avoid that sensation. Again, I'll repeat. Your mental reaction to panic attack sensations up until this point has been one of avoidance and of attempts at suppression. You've tried to push them down. And that's a natural response. When we're afraid of something, we try to avoid it. But in this case, on a purely mental level, this avoidance amounts to trying to suppress the feeling. And the real problem is that this tendency to avoid or suppress is fear-based. And that additional fear is exactly what amplifies the sensation and starts the panic attack spiral. So the solution, conceptually, is very simple. don't avoid it. Stop avoiding the sensation. Go to the opposite side of the spectrum and mentally embrace it. I mean, choose to experience those sensations as directly and as fully as possible. Whether you notice the sensations just starting or if you're at the peak of the mother of all panic attacks, face it with your mind's eye, choose to be with it, and say, bring it on. I know this sounds terrifying and it may very well be a challenge at first, but I wouldn't tell you this if it weren't true. I've been through panic attacks and I wouldn't wish them upon anyone. What I'm telling you right now was the key to stopping panic attacks in my life forever. Discovering this technique was like being set free from hell, and I really hope that you'll find it to be your key too. With this tool and skill, I knew then, and I still know now, that I never have to worry about panic attacks ever again. So here's what I want you to do. Next time you sense a panic attack coming on, or even if you find yourself in the midst of one, go somewhere where you can be on your own, sit in a chair, close your eyes, and focus your full awareness on the sensations in your body. Don't try to change the feelings or to suppress them. Just let them be there and observe them as they are. Use whatever technique works for you to keep your focused attention on those sensations in an accepting way. You can simply observe the energies, mentally listen to them. You can greet them, welcome them, talk to them, describe them. That may sound strange, but it's a means to an end. Your goal is to get to know your internal sensations and feelings as clearly and directly as possible, especially those that accompany or precede a panic attack. You've spent months, maybe even years, trying to suppress these feelings in your body, and just think, where has it gotten you? My guess is that it's made things worse. Of course it has. Now you know why. And now you know that the key is to flip your approach around. Get to know and embrace these feelings within you. Become as familiar as you possibly can with them. Want to know them. Welcome them anytime. Embrace them. And that's it. Practice this often. It won't take long before you start to trust the results. And at that point, when you really start to apply it fully, then you'll really start to see some amazing progress. All right, if you'd like some additional insights or guidance, please check out my free audio program, which you can listen to online. It includes guided exercises, which I think you'll find extremely helpful, because the best way to learn something like this is by doing it. So if anything here has resonated with you and you'd like to explore these concepts further, you can listen to that for free online at mc2method.org. Once you're on the listening page, be sure to click the anxiety link, which is the audio that will be most relevant to panic attacks. If you're interested, there's another audio there that explains how you can apply this same concept to other areas of your life. That's free as well. But do start with the anxiety version. If you found anything here helpful, I think you'll really enjoy that. Again, the URL is mc2method.org. Thanks for watching, and good luck to you.